Hello everyone, my name is Tyler Stillman. I am the instructor for this class. This class is Entrepreneurial Marketing. It's a relatively new class and it's one that I designed from the ground up maybe a little over a year ago. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to design a very different kind of class than from how I've taught in the past. And this might be different from other classes that you've taken in terms of the way it's structured. So you have 4 due dates, as you can see here, essentially 4 due dates in this class. And what you will do as far as projects for these project due dates is largely up to you. So there are at least 8 different options, and we'll talk about those 8 different options in a minute. Some of them are worth a full project point. Most of them are worth a full project point. A couple of them are worth a half a project point. But so there's lots of different options. I think I calculated it, and there are 70 different ways to meet these requirements. The 4 project option for this class. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it that way is that people bring, well, different interests to the class for sure. So I know that in the past there have been some students that are more interested in the entrepreneurship side and other students that are more interested in the marketing side. So some of the projects are more targeted to maybe an entrepreneurial mindset as opposed to a marketing mindset. But also one of the things that I would really like to see in this class is if you have a business idea or a business startup, I would like to see you choose things that help you advance your business, get it off the ground, maybe come up with some promotional materials for your business. Having said that, one of the downsides to this approach is that I can't have all of these different options and give you the choice both of what to do and when to do it, and then have all of those show up with due dates in Canvas. So on your side, there's going to be a little bit more of self-direction, and you'll need to be to stay on top of things. I'll help, and halfway through each project due date, I'll send a reminder. In fact, you'll have a quiz in Canvas. It's framed as a quiz. But the question is just how much are you on target? Are you will you have this done by the due date kind of thing? But other than that, you're going to have to kind of manage your time without getting regular updates, due dates from Canvas. So the first one we'll talk about as a project is the book Contagious. This is a relatively brief book. As far as what the assignment is, what the project is, you will read each of the chapters. There's a brief quiz on each chapter, and then there is a project at the end. The project will require you to use AI and to come up with some promotional materials that reflect the content of the book. This book is, for me, one of the easiest ones to recommend for anyone in this class. It is, I think, it's exceptional for anyone in marketing, and it's also exceptional for anyone with more of an entrepreneurial kind of mindset. It is a great way, well, let me just put it this way. So one of the things that a lot of you will find out once you graduate is people will come to you and ask for your help in coming up with promotional materials and ideas. This is a really helpful kind of go-to resource, and hopefully you'll remember the content. I think you will. There's a lot of examples that will stick with you. This is a great resource for at any point someone approaches you and asks you for some help with a business or promotion. And then, of course, if you have your own business that you're interested in launching, this is a very valuable resource. So one thing I should have mentioned on that past slide was that the contagious book is that project is one full project point. The one we'll talk about now, the positioning map, counts as a half a project. It's not quite as demanding as far as your time goes. The one thing I should say at the outset is that there's a requirement with this project that most assignments don't have, which is this is only for people who have a startup or have a startup idea. So if you have either an idea that you're thinking about turning into a business, or you're in the early stages of a business, or even mid to late stages of a business, this is a good project for you. One of the things that I am fond of saying in marketing is that in marketing, better isn't better, different is better, which is to say that how your product is different from the competition is where a lot of the value lies. So the purpose of a positioning map is that you have two dimensions, and it helps to illustrate how consumers perceive different brands, right? So here you can see there's quality as the horizontal axis and price as the vertical axis. That's a very common way of breaking up a product. That's honestly kind of a boring one, and hopefully you'll come up with more creative ones. But what I'd like you to do, basically what this project is to take your own idea or your own business, identify your competitors, and then come up with a positioning map so that you can really identify what makes your product or brand or service different as compared to the competition. And then along with that is to generate some promotional materials that lean into that positioning. So again, that is worth a half a project point. Next project, and this is worth a full project point. This is to watch and answer a couple of quizzes based on 14 people who spoke in the Entrepreneurship Speaker Series. These are among the most interesting and inspiring speakers that we've had. You can see here, here, that this particular one has 111,000 views, which is pretty good for an SUU class video. Matt Wetzel, right? If you don't know, this you should watch the video, right, and get a sense for how he became as big as he did. So one other thing about these videos is there's an emphasis on SUU graduates, recent SUU graduates. There's a couple, 3 or 4 recent SUU graduates who launched and are succeeding in their businesses. And one thing I'll say again, which is that what they're doing is essentially going from nothing to something, and going from idea to a business is sort of the heart of that is entrepreneurial marketing. How do you get those first few customers? And so that's one that I have no problem recommending to everybody in the class. Next up is a very short book. Do I have a copy? I'm sure I do, somewhere in my office. Super brief book called Entrepreneurial Foundations. This one is definitely more on the entrepreneurial side than on the marketing side. It's written by Stephen A. Hitz, who is really a great supporter of Southern Utah University and SUU students in general. He has had remarkable success and is genuinely humble. There's a lot of kind of pretend humble folks out there, especially who have had a lot of success in their business startups. Steve is genuinely humble. He at one point had 1,000 employees across the country, doing something, honestly, it's kind of boring sounding, but it was services for the insurance industry, but he was remarkably successful, and he's the kind of guy that that you would never know that um, if you met him. Anyway, he's funny, he's humble, he's genuine. Um, and this book also, I think it's fair to say there is some kind of religious or spiritual element to it a little bit. Steve is somebody who is attuned or interested in the long-term well-being of people around him. And so there you go. That's Entrepreneurial Foundations. But wait, there's more. So Steve Hitz also has a course called Entrepreneurial Foundations. This is this has some overlap with the book, but it's significantly different enough that I feel very comfortable giving you credit for both of them. If you like the book, you'll probably like the course, and if you like the course, you'll probably like the book. And I mentioned that Steve was a great supporter of SUU students, and this course is kind of evidence of that. He met one of a recent graduate from SUU, Timothy Christensen. You may know Timothy. He just hired Timothy to work with him and come up with this course. And so the course is cool, but it's also kind of demonstrates just Steve's commitment to helping student entrepreneurs. It is $15 through the Silicon Globe website. There's a link to it. All the other things you can buy directly from wherever you buy books, if that's required. There you go. This is the one and only 1.5 credit project. So this is the project here is to read the book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. The author is Rick Rubin. Whereas for the other books that you might choose to do, there are quizzes in the traditional sense where there might be 3 or 4 multiple choice questions. For this book, there are quite a large number of very short chapters, and what you do instead is just react. And so it is framed like a quiz, but you read the first chapter, take the quiz, and then just react to what you read. There are a couple that instead of saying react, it says summarize, just to keep you on your toes a little bit. And one of the reasons that I think this book is useful is for both entrepreneurship and marketing, or entrepreneurial marketing, is that there's really no discipline. Creativity is critical to both of these disciplines, and he doesn't really suggest like here's a couple tactics to be more creative. The title is The Creative Act, A Way of Being, and that's really what he's trying to cultivate. That might not make a ton of sense, but once you get into the book, you will understand what he's doing and what that's about. So, who is Rick Rubin? I think some of you might have heard of him. I'm pretty certain you will be familiar with some of his work. So he is one of possibly the most successful record or music producer in the world. So I'm going to give you a list of bands or musical acts that were relatively unknown until they worked with Rick Rubin. In other words, these are bands that he put on the map. So the first one is the Beastie Boys. Second one is LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Slayer, System of a Down, the Black Crowes, and Danzig. So again, those were all bands that were unknown until they worked with Rick Rubin. Here's some additional artists. Again, I'm sure you'll be a fan of at least one of these. I'm pretty confident. Kesha, Adele, Ed Sheeran, Lady Gaga, Metallica, The Cult, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rage Against the Machine, The Strokes, Weezer, Audioslave, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Linkin Park, Slipknot, Johnny Cash, the Avett Brothers, The Chicks, and Tyler Childers and Kid Rock. So obviously a huge range of different artists, and I don't know. It's fun for me to assign this when I was growing up, before I knew who Rick Rubin was, before you could hop on the internet and find these things. One of the things that I was just kind of confused by is why this name Rick Rubin would show up in kind of my favorite bands, but were in wildly different musical genres. Anyway, enough about that. Zigzag principle is worth one full project. This is one where you read a chapter, take a multiple choice quiz. There are a couple of assignments in here, maybe 2 or 3 that are not quiz based, but are a little bit more about self-expression and kind of sorting through what your own values are. One of the things that Rich Christensen, the author of this book, really believes in is what's called bootstrapping, whereas kind of the more commonly understood approach to entrepreneurship is if you want to, say you want to start a big lawn mowing or landscaping business, what they kind of the traditional model is you get a big loan, then you invest in equipment, a fleet of vehicles, and then you start promoting and right. What Rich Christensen would say is that the first step is not to get a loan, but your first step should be to go mow your neighbor's lawn and get a little bit of cash, learn a little bit from it. And so you can see the title there. Whoops, there. You can see the book. Where is it? With the zigzags going up. That's the idea, that if your goal is to have a multi-million-dollar landscaping business, you don't that you have to plot a course that generally takes you one step closer at a time. So the thing that Rich is really, I think, good at, and the thing that this book I think is particularly useful for, is to go again from nothing to something. How do you take those initial steps to go from idea to an income generating business, and then from there, how do you go to where you ultimately want to go with your business? Last up is Anything You Want, 40 Lessons for a New Kind of Entrepreneur. The author is Derek Sivers. I think that's how you say his name. This is an extremely short book. There are a couple of quizzes that you'll take, also some kind of self-reflective type of questions. I think I read this book and was just really very impressed by this individual. One of the things that he really suggests is that it's okay for your business to stay small. And he had a business that he intentionally tried to keep small and just really focused on serving his customers, and sort of almost despite his desire to stay small and focus all of his attention on serving his customers, it turned out that was what made him just have a business that was extremely large and successful, right? And I think this is an interesting book, both in terms of its business suggestions, but also there's a deep kind of love of humanity that comes out in this book. That's it for all of the project assignments that you can choose from. The next thing to do is to take the syllabus quiz. There's some of the questions that you'll have to answer for the syllabus quiz are found in this video. Other ones are in the actual syllabus. I'm not going to go through all of that information here. I'll just mention a couple things. One, please, in the syllabus, the exact specific editions of books are identified. Please get the exact version that identify you'll do better on your quizzes or assignments if you have the correct version. Also, maybe this is a good point to mention this. Most people won't watch the entire video. If you've watched all the way to this point, I will open up a different project, which is that if you have a business of your own or one that you're ready to launch, that could be grounds for a new project. So what you would need to do is just schedule an appointment with me and create, and we'll come up with, once I understand where you are in your business, we can come up with some benchmarks, and that will count as contributing to or being a full project, possibly up to 2 projects. We'll discuss that. But the reason I want to put that here is that the small portion of people who make it all the way to the end are the kind of students that I want to offer that kind of an option to. One last thing I will say is that I really enjoy my job, and it's no trouble at all for you to ask me to do my job. So if you have questions, you'd like some help, I know it's a cliche to say, please don't hesitate. So it's a cliche, but please don't hesitate. I actually would like to meet some of you and hear what your business ideas are. Thanks for your attention, and I wish you the best this semester.